Hi there. Welcome back to our next session on Java's Struts 2.0 framework. In this session we will learn about core components of Struts 2.0. So let's start our session with interceptors. Interceptor is an object that is invoked at the pre-processing and post-processing of a request. In Struts 2, interceptor is used to perform operations such as validation, exception handling, internationalization, displaying intermediate result, etc. Advantage of interceptors. Pluggable if we need to remove any concerns such as validation, exception handling, logging, etc. from the application, we don't need to redeploy the application. We only need to remove the entry from the struts.xml file. Struts2 default interceptors. There are many interceptors provided by Struts2 framework. We have option to create our own interceptors. The Struts2 default interceptors are as follows. Alias, it converts similar parameters that have different names between requests. Auto wiring. Chain, if it is used with chain result type, it makes the properties of previous action available in the current action. Checkbox, it is used to handle the checkboxes in the form. By this, we can detect the unchecked checkboxes. Cookie, it adds a cookie to the current action. Conversion error, it adds conversion errors to the action's field errors. Create session, it creates an HTTP session object if it doesn't exist. Clear session, it unbinds the HTTP session object. Debugging, it provides support of debugging. External ref. Exec and wait, it sends an intermediate waiting page for the result. Exception, it maps exception to a result. File upload, it provides support to file upload in Struts2. I18N, it provides support to internationalization and localization. JSON validation, it provides support to asynchronous validation. Logger, it outputs the action name. Store, it stores and retrieves action messages, action errors, or field errors for action that implements validation-aware interface. Model-driven, it makes other model object as the default object of ValueStack. Scoped model-driven, it is similar to model-driven but works for action that implements scoped model-driven. Params, it populates the action properties with the request parameters. Action mapping params. Prepare, it performs preparation logic if action implements preparable interface. Profiling, it supports action profiling. Roles, it supports role-based action. Scope, it is used to store the action state in the session or application scope. Surflay config, it provides access to maps representing HTTP surflay request and HTTP surflay response. Session auto wiring. Static params, it maps static properties to action properties. Timer, it outputs the time needed to execute an action. Token, it prevents duplication submission of request. Token session, it prevents duplication submission of request. Validation, it provides support to input validation. Workflow, it calls the validate method of action class if action class implements validate-able interface. Annotation workflow. And multi-select. Struts 2.0 value stack. A value stack is simply a stack that contains application-specific objects such as action objects and other model object. At the execution time, action is placed on the top of the stack. We can put objects in the value stack, query it and delete it. Methods of value stack interface. There are many methods in ValueStack interface. The commonly used methods are public string find string, string expare, method, finds the string by evaluating the given expression. Public object find value, string expare, method, finds the value by evaluating the specified expression. Public object find value, string expare, class C, method, finds the value by evaluating the specified expression. Public object peek, method, it returns the object located on the top of the stack. Public object pop, method, it returns the object located on the top of the stack and removes it. Public void push, object O, method, it puts the object on the top of the stack. Public void set, string key, object value, method, it sets the object on the stack with the given key. It can be get by calling the find value, key, method. And public insize, method, it returns the number of objects from the stack. Struts 2.0 ActionContext. The ActionContext is a container of objects in which action is executed. The values stored in the ActionContext are unique per thread, that is thread local. So we don't need to make our action thread safe. We can get the reference of ActionContext by calling the getContext method of ActionContext class. It is a static factory method. Struts 2.0 Action Invocation. The action invocation represents the execution state of an action. It holds the action and interceptors objects. Action Invocation Interface. The Struts framework provides action invocation interface to deal with action invocation. It provides many methods, some of them can be used to get the instance of ValueStack, action proxy, action context, result etc. Methods of action invocation interface. The commonly used methods of action invocation interface are. You can see the names of methods and description of them on your screen. Make a note of them. Struts 2.0 OGNL. The Object Graph Navigation Language, OGNL, is an expression language. It simplifies the accessibility of data stored in the action context. The Struts framework sets the value stack as the root object of OGNL. Notice that action object is pushed into the value stack. We can direct access the action property. The Struts framework places other objects in action context also, like map representing the request, session, application scopes. To get these values that is not the action property, we need to use number notation. For example, to get the data from session scope, we need to use number session. Struts 2.0 Architecture and Flow. The architecture and flow of Struts 2 application is combined with many components such as controller, action proxy, action mapper, configuration manager, action invocation, interceptor, action, result etc. We are going to understand the Struts flow by two ways. Struts 2 basic flow, and Struts 2 standard architecture and flow provided by Apache Struts. Struts 2.0 basic flow. Let's try to understand the basic flow of Struts 2 application by this simple figure. 1 user sends a request for the action. 2 controller invokes the action invocation. 3 action invocation invokes each interceptors and action. 4 a result is generated. 5 the result is sent back to the action invocation. 6 a HTTP survey response is generated. And 7 response is sent to the user. See the diagram carefully. Struts 2.0 standard flow. Let's try to understand the standard architecture of Struts 2 application by this simple figure. 1 user sends a request for the action. 2 container maps the request in the web.xml file and gets the class name of controller. 3 container invokes the controller, struts prepare and execute filter or filter dispatcher. Since Struts 2.1, it is struts prepare and execute filter. Before 2.1 it was filter dispatcher. 4 controller gets the information for the action from the action mapper. 5 controller invokes the action proxy. 6 action proxy gets the information of action and interceptor stack from the configuration manager, which gets the information from the struts.xml file. 7 action proxy forwards the request to the action invocation. 8 action invocation invokes each interceptors and action. 9 a result is generated. 10 the result is sent back to the action invocation. 11 a HTTP survey response is generated. And 12 response is sent to the user. Hope you liked this session. In our next sessions we will understand the mechanism of struts with the help of programming. Till then, take care. Thank you.